Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome The Time. Today we take a little look at The Time's debut album entitled The Time, which was released in July 1981. Prince would later call The Time Godzilla and claim that they were the only band he was truly afraid of. Prince obviously saw a great deal of talent and charisma in Morris Day right from their childhood friendship, and when Morris joined Prince's early band Grand Central, it was clear that the two could work together well. Prince was determined from the very start that he wanted to create a movement much wider than himself. He wanted a whole collective of groups and artists with him to ensure that the Minneapolis sound thrived for a generation. One of the key accommodations that Prince managed to secure from Warner Brothers was that he could recruit and produce additional artists for the label. Prince was apparently inspired by films such as The Idolmaker, which detailed the producer behind the scenes, the unseen hand guiding and launching new careers. When you consider this period over the next few years, and The Time, Vanity 6, Apollonia 6, Sheila E. and many, many more, it was clearly extremely inspiring for Prince to have these alternative outlets for his flood of creativity, and it also allowed him to carefully position his own work whilst also imparting influence beyond the headline Prince albums. The Time came into being when Prince used Morris Day's initial idea for a groove and created the Dirty Mind track Party Up. Prince gave Morris a choice, $10,000 for the song, or Prince would help Morris create a group with the support from Warner Brothers. Fortunately, Morris chose to create the band, and the idea for The Time was born. It was, however, a little different to how it would become best known. Initially, Morris was on drums, with Prince plundering two local bands, Flight Time for Jimmy Jam, Monty Moore, Terry Lewis and Alexander O'Neill as the lead singer, and Morris's own enterprise Band of Pleasure for Morris and Jesse Johnson. The band was at this stage called The Nerve and not The Time. After a couple of songs were recorded, there was a dispute between Alexander O'Neill and Prince, which led to Alexander leaving the band. Jelly Bean Johnson, the sole member of Flight Time not picked up already, quickly became the drummer, and a somewhat bemused Morris became the lead singer. Morris admitted that he was not used to appearing at the front of the stage, and developing his cocky swagger and bravado wasn't instantly natural to him. The last member of the group, Jerome Benton, cousin to Terry Lewis, joined shortly after the first album was released and became a great counterpoint to Morris, dancer and comic foil. Indeed, when Morris asked for a mirror during a song, Jerome rushed to the restroom, yanked a large mirror off the wall and held it for Morris to preen himself in, and a comic set piece was born. The Time's debut album was interesting in a number of ways. Firstly, because most of the time didn't play on it. Prince largely created, recorded and played everything, with Morris adding his lead vocals. Des Dickerson also added some writing, including the credit for the track After High School, for which Prince added the instrumentation. It is possible that some of the seeds of discontent for future relations between Prince and The Time were sown here. Prince reportedly at one point in their career tossed a tape towards a Time member, which Prince had solely recorded, and quipped, "See how good you play on your album?" Prince, despite creating the record and playing almost everything, wanted to hide his involvement to a degree and was uncredited, using the pseudonym Jamie Starr as a producer alongside Morris. The album was also unusual in that despite being over 42 minutes long, there were only 6 tracks, one stretching over 8 minutes, one over 9 and one over 10 in duration. Half of these 6 tracks were released as singles. So let's dive straight in to track 1. The first track in the first single, Get It Up, is a 9-minute funk workout which bursts onto the scene with a twisting, snaking synthesizer motif. Whilst a Prince-written track with Morris on vocals, Dr. Fink does add a signature synth solo. I must admit the thing that really hits you is the full warm production and reliance on synth instrumentation. Indeed, after just 1 minute, a little solo already adds to the groove. Lyrically, the track is a very straightforward jam, with Morris urging the subject of his affection to get it up and let her hair down. Morris's vocal, whilst not placed massively high in the mix, complements the track well, and there is a moment at 2 minutes 32 which could easily be found on a Prince record, where Jamie Starr himself is quite prominent. It does take a certain type of confidence to start an album with a 9-minute track which pushes the instrumentation front and centre, and indeed just before 3 minutes a fiery guitar solo adds a superb addition to the track. The solo blazes on for close to a full 2 minutes, panning from speaker to speaker, and is incredible, played with such passion, verve and ability. It is here that we see the first example of why, for Prince, The Time was an essential outlet for him. This guitar solo will be the highlight on anyone's album, and yet Prince couldn't find a place for it on his own, but it fits perfectly here. Extraordinary. The main riff is very easy to enjoy with its references to being nasty and some nice backing vocals. The synth solo at 5 minutes 25 is a Dr. Fink workout which sounds like a wailing guitar and shows how deep the talent in Prince's band went. I have to say that with a pair of headphones the bass notes really sound sumptuous and gorgeously vibrant. Bernie Grundman deserves credit for their mastering. A punky full-throated chant section at 8 minutes really shows a nod to Party Up, and I honestly really enjoyed this track even more than I thought I would. Girl, not to be confused with Prince's own track with the same name, was the third and final single, and it's a great chance for Morris to establish his seduction balladry skills. It is quite disarming that there were many ballads in the 1990s that have a very similar vibe and feel to this track from the early 80s. It's a quick change of pace from the opener too. It's interesting to note that Prince songs tend to be more specific than Time songs, and here the lyrics are quite general to heartbreak and urging a lover to stay. This may well appeal more to a mainstream audience, and it was something that would become a real issue when the Time toured with Prince, as their performances and reception often gave Prince something that threatened to eclipse him. Strangely, it almost became a role reversal of the Rick James tour, where Prince was the young upstart attempting to grab the plaudits. Prince's vocals are all over the chorus and add a great tonal contrast to Morris's lead. Morris here extends his voice much further than the opening track. Indeed, the note that is held at 1 minute 26 is pretty impressive. The lyrics are mournful and yearn for lost love with a mature melancholy. Once again the production is thick and plush, and Morris rises for each wave of musicality, pushing his voice further and further. By 3 minutes 50 some nice falsetto touches, leading to a breakdown section which achingly slows the track right down to a canter for some vocal noodling, and Morris gently parks the song. The only track written by Des Dickerson, but performed by Morris and Prince, it was included as a B-side to Get It Up. A real classic coming-of-age track which could almost feel at home in a musical like Grease. Morris is considering his future after high school. Will he drive a truck or even join a band? His parents want him to go to college. That he won't get anywhere without the knowledge. But Uncle Sam keeps sending him letters in the mail for the draft. It's a typical situation where Morris is excited by making his own rules, but is being pressured to make plans, go to college, get a job. The shortest track on the album, it has a bouncy feel with some short machine gun-like drum additions and a thrusting propulsion. But this track is all about the catchy chorus which builds a home deep into your ear after just one listen. The high-pitched echo of Morris's vocal leads to a real feeling of cheerleading high school. The second half of the track is much more dirty mind punk protest, which allows Morris to let go and develop his persona a little more with some mimicked voices. A monster 10-minute funk classic that was a track Prince just could not leave in the past and start to pull out to perform from 2002 onwards, right up until his very last tour. A staple performance on the Welcome to America, Welcome to Canada and Welcome to Australia tours, and a track that is a great audience participation number. The second single released, there was also a great little video where the Time storm a classroom and educate the pupils on what it is to be truly cool. With lyrics by Des and music by Prince, this track has a truly unforgettable main riff which propels the song along in a pretty mesmeric way. Morris here fully explores his pimp, uber cool bravado personality with some truly Morris-like lines. I wear diamonds on my fingers, I got a couple on my toes. I wear the finest perfume money can buy, it keeps me smelling like a rose. If you wonder how I do it, there's just one simple rule, I'm just cool. The great chorus spells out the track C-O-O-L, which was a great opportunity for the audience to show how to spell it out. When I look into the mirror, it just tells me something I already know. I'm so cool. Honey, baby, can't you see? It's also a time when we start to hear Morris's infamous "What time is it?" refrain, which would become a stock-in-trade shout-out when on stage. Cool was something you didn't learn in school, Morris makes clear. Ain't nobody bad like me. In a way, this is the Morris character personified and distilled in one track. The way he lowers his voice and talks the lines before the chorus is a deft touch. This is one of those tracks that you could just extend for as long as you feel like, and it still feels vibrant and the minutes fly by. At 4 minutes 5, a stammering synth section leads into a pure Minneapolis sound jam with some sonically pert guitar work really seducing the ears. The musicality on display here is just first rate and makes you wonder, just in awe at the sheer productivity of Prince's creativity at this time. Prince and Morris add some great humour at about 7 minutes in, and Jamie Starr feels very alive. The chants at 7 minutes 45 drive the track further, and where most artists use the closing section to fade out a track, for Prince and Morris they seem to be just ramping things up. The last call and return section is something that Prince regularly used later in concert. Band? Yes. Anybody hot? No. You know why? Why? Because we cool. Cool. A second ballad which has a few nice piano touches and tremolo effects, and has a few discreet nods to Prince's later ballads such as Insatiable and Do Me Baby. But this is not quite specific enough to really make a huge impact. It's almost a case of the parts being better than the whole. The vocals of Morris are held well, and the backing vocals and Prince's synchronicity make the track sound quite velvety. Perhaps it just needs a great hook to really propel it further. The climax is certainly the highlight. Break it down, baby. Go on, break it all down. Give me your love, give me your mind, break down. Were the first seeds of the breakdown from Artificial Age planted here? The track became the B-side to Jungle Love a few years later at the height of the Time's popularity. Satisfaction, The Stick became the B-side to Girl and was apparently written by Lisa Coleman, although as there were no writing credits, Prince has also been recorded elsewhere as the writer. Unlike most tracks, Dr. Fink, Terry Lewis and Lisa also appear on the recording. This is pure tongue-in-cheek Dirty Mind era funk, where Morris explains his love for his stick, which, let us say, is used rather euphemistically, to say the least. Girl, your ride is bad, but you can't compare to my baby black Cadillac, oh so rare. Take a vacation, I don't care, 'cause I can get some stimulation anywhere. You just come too quick, I'd rather work my stick. Get a little satisfaction, work the stick in my ride. Lisa's backing vocals add a really fantastic aspect to this track, and it makes you appreciate her even more. The addition of her vocal really adds a texture that Prince would utilise fully over the next few years. It's certainly got humour and a riff that is pretty addictive, and there was a little nod to the work Prince would create in 1999 with tracks such as Lady Cab Driver. Indeed, the chicken grease guitar is very similar. There are even a few synth stabs that make you sense a DMSR vibe at 3 minutes 7 for about 10 seconds. A juicy, squelchy synth solo at 4 minutes 7 lets Dr. Fink off the leash, and a Prince guitar solo burst gives way to a refrain that rides over piano keys and guitar, with Morris ad-libbing and demanding to know what time it is. Morris finally concludes, I don't need you baby, I'll just work the stick in my ride. I don't need your action baby, get a little satisfaction, work the stick in my ride. In conclusion, this was an impressive debut album for which Prince and Morris take the lion's credit. The Time were an incredibly talented and musically able band, but make no mistake, Prince dominated this album and worked out a number of extended grooves which further developed his growing electronic synth sound. Prince was on the very cusp of a breakthrough, and he would take Morris and the Time with him. The Time would become true rivals to Prince and the Revolution during the 1999 Triple Threat tour, and the band gelled well together, developing a deep understanding. Prince had been largely responsible for creating Godzilla in the first place, but very soon they would begin to wrestle more control from him. The Time were just beginning, and the excitement of this project kept some of the tension at bay, at least for the moment. Morris was developing as a talent fast, and his persona was affable, comic and narcissistic. Morris was about to have his day.